You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Anyway, listen, thanks a whole bunch for coming on Serious Growth podcast. I really appreciate that. Before we get started, I'd like the person I actually was responsible for getting you on is Charlie, and I'd like you to meet him because he's a big fan. I mean, he's been telling me a lot about this stuff. I don't really know much about the Marvel industry, to tell you the truth, I'm being quite honest, but I'm very interested. But why don't you say hi to Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Charlie.
Nice to meet you, man.
Hey, let me ask you something. Okay, so what got you into the side of the business as a stunt? Is there a distinction between a motion capture stunt performer or just a stunt performer?
Yeah, I mean, I think for like the regular, like civilian, there are a number of, they kind of group all the stunt performers into one thing. They even call us stand-ins or background, which all of those are separate categories of performers. You know, a stunt person can do motion capture as a stunt person, just like an actor would, but they would be, you know, performing the movement, you know, of the fighting or the falling and that, you know, maybe creature work for motion capture, where the actors would just maybe come in and it'd be more focused on their face, and they would have a separate rig for that type of motion capture.
So is there a hierarchy? Is like when you know, like maybe the difference between, and I don't know if this is a good example, like a city cop versus a CHP, is there like if you're this kind of a stunt performer, you're like at the top of the top?
Yeah, there is. It's somewhat similar to like a military type of hierarchy, although you can interchange without like necessarily being demoted. You know, because I you know, I've been doing some stunt performing like as a stunt man, and I guess that would be like entry level stuff where you're on camera. You're taking bullet hits or punch to the face or falling or something like that.
Yeah.
And then some people would consider a step up from that would be a stunt double. Although they're very similar levels, if you happen to be doubling the lead, such as like Brad Pitt or something like that, or John Bernthal, right?
Yeah.
You are considered, you know, the lead stunt double, and they call that 1X.
Okay.
You are 1Xing.
I got you.
Yeah, that comes from, you know, John Bernthal is number one on the call sheet.
Yeah.
And they always, you know, categorize stunt people on the call sheet by X. Means that they are stunts. So even though you may not be doubling, you might be soldier number one, and you would be considered 201X.
Yeah.
So they know that you are a stunt person.
Yeah.
So when you are doubling the lead, you are now 1X. And if you are doubling the supporting role, you would be 2X and so forth.
And I assume that your pay sort of relates to if you're a 1X or a 2X. Is that right or no?
You would think so, but no, it
really?
doesn't. Everybody comes in under the same contract. Now you would assume you kind of get paid by what stunt you're performing.
Okay.
So you know, you would assume that the lead guy is getting more stunt adjustments.
Yeah.
And basically you get a day rate, and then if you know, crash a car, you are getting a tip essentially. And, you know, that tip can range from $100 up to, if you're crashing a car, it could be, you know, $7,000.
Yeah.
So you get your day rate, which I think the day rate now for SAG, I mean, you know, you would think I'd know it, but I think it's like $1,087 or something like that for 8 hours. So you would get that, and then the stunt adjustment, which would be $7,000, right? So that would be your day.
Yeah. Okay. So when you got into this in the beginning, did you initially get in as a stunt performer, or did you go the route of being an actor and then it didn't work out that way? How did that work out for you?
Well, I went to LA in the with the goal of becoming a stunt performer. So that was my idea. I didn't have anything that like I wanted to be famous or I tried to do acting or anything like that. Like I actually wanted to do stunts.
Okay.
And but everybody who gets into the industry, very rarely do you start off as a stunt performer or a actor. You usually are doing background work or what they call extra work.
Yeah.
And that means you are just part of a crowd. You know, you are the guy sitting at the desk while they're having a scene, while they're eating in a restaurant, where you're about 4 tables back, just sitting there acting like you're talking.
Right.
You know, you're doing nothing. You're just kind of moving your mouth. And half the time you're not even in focus. And you think you're in the movie, and then you see yourself and you're just like this blurry dot.
Yeah. So how is it that you move up on that? You know, you start like that. How does somebody discover you? You know, if you're that person that's in the crowd, it's like, oh, wait a minute, Eric, he's the one that we want to go next. You know, how does that work?
Yeah. You wish that you could take like a very specific way of getting there. Like if you want to be a pro basketball player, you know, you play high school, get noticed by a college, do X amount of years of college, enter the draft, maybe, you know, and there's a little bit
pathway.
Of like, there's a very distinct path, although there's some uncertainty in that path. This is actually very hodgepodge and completely uncertain, but what you have to do is become part of the Screen Actors Guild. So people ask, are you SAG?
Yeah.
So that basically means that you've qualified for the union. And the only way to qualify for the union is by doing background work and getting vouchers. And they don't just hand them out like candy, like they're fairly rare. Yeah. What you could do is, you know, as a background, you're non-union most of the time, and anybody can do that. Like if you're spending, you know, a month in LA, you can sign up for the background casting and you could just go work on a movie.
Yeah.
And, but then the more serious people want to get into the Screen Actors Guild. Ways of doing that is like, say you booked a commercial as a lead, like you're the only one that can balance, you know, 22 bottles on their nose. And they're like, hey, we got to hire this guy. Yeah. So you automatically become SAG. And now whether you want to join or not, because you secured a lead role, and it's up to you whether you would like to join the union or not, but then you now have that opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you have to kind of grind through background work and hope that you get those vouchers.
You know,
so that's actually what I did.
Yeah.
I grinded as a background actor.
I was going to say, you know, anything that's worth, you know, doing on that level, there's usually, you got to go through that process. And that's kind of what weeds out some of the people, I would imagine. It's kind of like that in every industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You start off in the mail room, and you bring people coffee and you know, file the letters.
Yeah.
And then one day you offered an office job working on a computer doing Excel, and you know, so forth. So it's similar to that, although there's just not a very clear path.
Yeah.
You know, there's some certain states, like, you know, like Alabama, for example, is a right to work state. So if somebody is willing to, you know, hire you as a stunt performer, you do not have to be SAG. You have the right to work, and you will get paid as a SAG actor. But getting somebody to hire you without essentially much experience is very difficult as well.
Yeah, you know, sometimes people, the average person doesn't really see, you know, kind of behind the scenes. They think, oh my goodness, the guy's a famous stunt double and, you know, overnight success. And we all know that normally doesn't happen. I mean, I guess occasionally it does, but you got to pay a damn price, you know, in anything, you know, that you want to do at that level.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, you know, there are a couple of people that have just like kind of skyrocketed and got in the, you know, storybook setting. Damien Walters, he was one of the guys that was in that chase scene for James Bond, the first James Bond with Daniel Craig. He was like an extremely talented parkour guy, and they needed somebody to be able to jump off this crane and like make this huge gap and do some of this parkour stuff.
Yeah.
So he literally was just like, boom, you are a movie stunt man.
Right place, right time, just everything fit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. They had to search for a guy that could do that, and he was the only guy that could.
Is he still around? All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about our product.
Do you want a bone-crushing grip? Good, because you're gonna get one with the amazing new TRS gripper. It's a progressive grip builder with longer handles and a special ergonomic design that's like a dozen hand grippers in one. Start off easy and work your way up to quickly build your grip strength from wet noodle to pulverizing. The package includes a video from the world-famous strength coach, Dr. Russ Horine, the man who worked with Leo Costa to help bring you big beyond belief in the Bulgarian power burst. Dr. Horine shows you a simple and easy to follow workout plan that takes just minutes a day right from in front of your TV set if you want. So click on the link below and let's get started building you a stronger, firmer, bone-crushing grip.
Oh yeah,
Is he?
he's the man. He's very, very good. I don't know what he's doing currently, but yeah, he's done some amazing feats and is very successful.
So let me ask you this: once you get in there at the mail room and you start climbing up, was there a certain type of stunt performer that you wanted to play, or did you kind of figure that out as you went? And was it based on obviously strengths versus weaknesses, or do you like in bodybuilding, for example, the whole point of bodybuilding is to improve your weaknesses, to become your strengths. And that's kind of why I'm asking you that question.
Yeah, well, actually, very similar. I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding, and very similar to that. If you want to be successful as a stuntman and have a long career, something that you could get to the point where you're retiring from doing this type of job, you can't just come in and have the best pecs and nothing else.
Right.
So you need to be well-rounded.
Yeah.
And, a well-rounded person who is able to drive a car, they're able to get lit on fire, but also light somebody on fire.
Yeah.
They're able to rig the wires, but they're also able to ride the wires. They're able to fight. They're able to be a guy who gets punched in the face, but they're also able to be the lead guy who can fight 6 people at the same time.
Yeah.
The more skills that you have, the more valuable you are, and the more likely you will be successful.
Do you think that if you have too many skills, does it compromise? In other words, the difference between being good at a lot of things and good at 3, really, really good at 3 different things. I mean, do you think that's important too?
I do. Yeah. I think it's, fighting's a big thing because you believe it or not, like any idiot can fall down, but not everybody can fight.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to perform, and by that, I mean, some people can get in there and fight and do the moves. It's a whole nother thing to bring emotion and essentially what is action acting to that, because you're fighting a lead guy. He's the actor, but you need to seem imposing, or you need to seem a threat. And the moves need to feel organic and like it's happening right in front of their face,
right.
Not like you've practiced it 4,000 times.
Right.
Although you have practiced it 4,000 times.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Being able to do something like that is it takes more than just the skill of fighting.
Yeah.
So, I think if you focus on like you can drive and you can fight and do a little bit of wire work, well, you're going to work a lot. I mean, you may not be like, hey, I don't know how to rig the wires, but I can ride them. Well, that's fine. You don't have to know everything.
Yeah. You can be very specific in your craft. Yeah, it makes sense. Very much like athletics, you're talking about repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. And that's a lot of people don't realize that. It's like the reason that it looks so damn easy is because you performed it in practice 1,000, how many times to make it look that way. It just doesn't happen unless you're a freak of nature that can do that. But I know my kid was in professional athletics, and bodybuilding's the same way. And you have to do something so many times where, like a baseball hitter, those guys are, when they're in that box, when somebody's throwing 100 miles an hour, they can't be thinking about stuff. They got to be quiet. It's all got to be reaction. And I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also the thing that somebody could be very skilled in practice, right? But when it's game time, you also got to be able to perform.
So true.
And you can't freeze up. You got to be able, because there's lights, there's cameras. Like I might be fighting this guy, but then a car is going to zoom between us, and then we keep fighting. Like you got to be able to see that coming out of the corner of your eye, know the timing. be on your mark. There's a lot of stuff that goes into making something look easy.
Yeah, there's those that are gamers and those that are forever practice players. I ran across that when I was in my athletic career too. So as you're getting through this process, okay, is there like a stunt school that you go to learn all these different moves and things like that?
Well, there are some stunt schools. There's some, I believe there's one in Washington and Seattle area, and I believe there's some East Coast ones. Now, if you come in and hand me your resume and say you went to a stunt school and that's all you got, that means next to nothing.
Really?
I mean, you might as well tell me you learned to fall down on the playground. Like, now, is it a good thing for somebody who's like, I kind of want to see if I want to do this, and they go to a stunt school? It's 3 days or a week or something like that, and you're going to get a wide variety of seeing how things work. I think that's a good place to start. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Something that those stunt schools can cost $3,000.
Really?
Now, if you were to take, it's almost like saying you go to a bodybuilding show. Like, can you be a bodybuilder? Like,
Right.
can you go pose from watching one show?
Right.
Of course you can.
No.
Now, if you took that money it costs to go to the show or to the stunt school, now how many jujitsu and boxing classes does $3,000 get you?
Right.
Well, that might get you training for 2 years.
Yeah.
And more than one thing. So now, and maybe you could take a little bit of money, go learn how to drive, and then spend the rest on, some boxing classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the rest of the time you need to, work on your own and try to find people that are better than you and work out that type of stuff. And believe it or not, making your own things or volunteering for a YouTube video that's happening in your town, let them know that you're new, but you're willing to work for free, and you start gaining experience. On-set experience just takes time, and it's not something that you can cram.
Separates the boys from the men. My dad told me, as well as Albert Einstein, my dad used to say it's really hard to replace firsthand experience. And that's what you're talking about. Einstein said it, true knowledge is through experience. It's hard to beat that. And you're absolutely right. That's why I was asking if because you're right. I've seen people come through, because I certify trainers. They're book smart, but they don't have that on the job, being with that client experience in real time. That makes a huge difference.
Well, and also, like, how much of a difference is it to, learn to bodybuild from a trainer or to learn to bodybuild from a bodybuilder?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different thing. And, if you're able to go and work with some stunt people in your town that are working, they all go and train.
Sure.
A lot of times they know where they came from. They understand being new. I just think that you should let them know that you're new.
Yeah.
And if that's something that you want to do. And half the time people are more, if you're cool and humble, like, people are more willing to share knowledge.
Yeah, I agree with you. In your line of work, I would think that it sounds like it's pretty physical, or it can be. Now, I know you say you do the bodybuilding, bodybuilding is important because of the look from head to toe. I get that. But when it comes to performing something that requires strength and explosive power, do you guys ever work with a strength coach instead of a bodybuilding coach?
Well, some people do, and I think a lot of times falls on an actor per se, because they may be trying to get ready for a certain role.
Yeah.
Stunt people kind of need to stay in this never-ending state of readiness, and so I train 5-6 days a week just because I like it.
Yeah.
I like to lift weights and stay in shape, and I studied that stuff. Like, I wanted to be a bodybuilder in college.
Yeah.
And I was doing that for a while, and I was going to shows and stuff, because I'm from Ohio, so like I went to the Arnold many times.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the Mecca.
That's
so
right.
I went around a lot of the world's gyms around there and stuff like that. But I haven't needed that, but something that was kind of an evolution in the working out type of thing is I went on to 300 Rise of an Empire. It's the sequel that most people never saw, but we were starting to get into the Jim Jones CrossFit side of stuff.
Okay.
And it wasn't even called CrossFit really back then.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the CrossFit games were a thing. or maybe it just had started up. But we started doing that type of training to build muscle and lean down at the same time.
Yeah.
Which if you're trying to lean down, it's impossible to get bigger.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
But you are becoming more defined. And I actually ended up becoming quite a bit, like my arms were quite a bit smaller, but the leaner your waist got, the bigger you looked on film.
That's correct.
And I walked in 180 and walked out of there at 160.
Yeah.
And the thing is on camera, I looked jacked.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, we were killing ourselves, but that was a new evolution in working out for me.
Yeah.
And now I have integrated CrossFit into my training.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of doing rounds of like, you know, go real hard and then stop, then go real hard and then stop, and you're lifting and doing cardio at the same time.
Yeah.
Translates into you know, doing multiple takes of a fight scene.
Right.
Because you take a break and then you go in and you need to go full go for that 30 seconds or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, because I've trained a lot of athletes, professional athletes, all across the board. And one of the things that's really important, which is what you're talking about right now, is to be sport specific. You know, not only sport specific, but position specific, because otherwise it doesn't fully translate. You know, in the old days, it was like the coaches, before they knew all this, you know, with training, they just went 5 sets of 5. It was pure strength. So you had an athlete that was strong but slow, you know, and you can't have that. And the same thing happens with you. That's how I translate what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's spot on. And you know, you also now this doesn't mean every stunt person is like this physical specimen.
Yeah.
Because just like walking down the street, there's a need in film for all sizes and shapes, and because we're just all human.
Yeah.
And there's some guys that are seemingly out of shape, but they are still hell of an athlete, right? It's just like kind of like their body type, and they own that. And you know, there's some guys that aren't, you know, can't jump up on a curb,
right? But
they hit the ground as hard as can be, or they may get in a car and rip it.
Yeah.
So they're you know, it's just like a microcosm of like the United States, where there's everybody's involved, and everybody has their own place.
Well, you know, I've seen athletes, like, to address what you're saying, I've seen athletes that don't really look like, you know, that specimen, but they're freaks on the gridiron. You know, you're thinking, how the hell can that person move that big at 300 pounds and he looks like he's fat? You know what I mean? It's just, I think that's what you're saying. You know, interesting. I also am curious to know, you seem like you're the type of person that sort of pays attention to detail. And how's your diet? Are you pretty well versed in your diet, or are you kind of winging it?
I go through phases of being quite on, and also not caring so much. But I do, you know, like I stay away from sugar for the most part. You know, I'd rather spend those calories on my whiskey at night.
Oh, there you go.
Or having a beer or something like that. But you know, I'm pretty religious with like trying to carb up a little bit before I train, and making sure I have protein shakes and you know, that type of food afterwards. I became a father about 1.5 years ago.
Congrats.
And so that obviously, you know, has its own challenges to it.
Yeah.
But I'm never far, you know, more than 2 weeks away from being shredded, I guess.
Yeah. I know. Like,
I just don't like to hate my life, more or less, you know.
Yeah.
But I always keep it clean. You know, I eat relatively clean, but then when you're like, geez, I want to have a beer, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so much easier that way. I know, like in my early days in bodybuilding, the thing back then was you bulk up as much as you can. Unfortunately, you put on too much fat. You know, if you get over 10% body fat, or, you know, then all you're doing is losing a bunch of muscle and some fat. You know, it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out real, and you suffer for that.
Yeah, I mean, winter's the bulking season, and you know, it's getting warm outside, and I am integrating more and more cardio into my workouts every day. I like to run outside and stuff like that. And I'm actually feel like I'm on an upswing, and I'll be leaning out as it gets warmer.
Yeah, that makes sense. As you're going through, and what would you say would be your, when did you go from if I can use another sports analogy, when did you go from the minor leagues to the major leagues, and which movie was that? And how did you feel when you took that big step to the major leagues?
Yeah. I was bouncing around doing a day here and there. When it comes to stunts, oftentimes you'll, when you start working, as people start getting to know who you are, like you may get 4 jobs, like days over the whole year. Right.
Ooh.
And then year 2, you may get 1 job a month. And then year 3, hopefully you're working 2 times a month, maybe 3, or sometimes you're stringing together a week here or there. And, by year 4 or 5, like hopefully you have months that are hot where you're working, maybe 5 different shows, or, a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there, and you're stringing together a lot of work. And then usually around that time, like if you're doing good work and everybody likes you, you'll get asked to be on a team where you are on one movie for, upwards of 6 months.
There you go.
When I was just kind of bouncing around doing that, I was doing pretty good. I was getting 1 job a month, maybe 2. And I did a pilot for NCIS Los Angeles. I doubled Chris O'Donnell, who, he teams up with LL Cool J, and that show that's still on. But when they asked me to double him, you're just thinking like the guy that played Robin, Batman and Robin. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I was happy to get the work, and I went to work for a new guy, and they're like, you got to shave your head. And I'm like, yeah, fine. But, the saying in the movie industry is, hair grows, money doesn't.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, so true.
So yeah, shave my head, right? And it was just like high and tight or whatever. I went in, did 1 day, got shot up, and that was the end of that. So I went on to, I'd been practicing a lot of fire, and I went on to The Last Airbender. It was M. Night Shyamalan. It won all of the Razzies the year it came out. It was terrible. But, it was a big job. I think I was on it supposed to be on about a month. I went in and, did a good job, and they asked to keep me around, and I ended up doing 3 months. So like, I felt like I was rich,
Yeah.
And that was my longest, biggest job. About the time I got home from that, found out that the pilot had gotten picked up. So, I contacted the coordinator, and they were like, yeah, man, we'll give you a shot for the show.
Yeah.
So I went in on episode 1 and doubled the guy in a fight, did a good job. And they go, okay, we'll bring you back next episode. And then from that point, I ended up working on almost every episode that whole season. So that was, here and there, but it was in town. So it'd be like one episode, they may not have a stunt for him. They move it around through the other casts.
Yeah.
But out of 24 episodes, I probably did 18 of them. So I was doing very, very good.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had made it. I was 1X on a big network TV show.
Yeah.
And really I had made it. And when you ask, like, how did I feel to make it?
Yeah.
I was terrified they wouldn't bring me back every single time I worked.
I know.
Like
something.
Like, it's always like, what have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
Like if I punch the actor, or if I, accidentally go too far in the car and like clip a camera or something like that, you're done, pal.
Wow.
Bye. Like, there is no, you may have to do that same thing more than one time, but there's no like second chances.
Yeah.
Like, if they didn't get the take, it's okay. But if you mess up a little bit here and there, it's fine. But if you screw up bad, like, you're done, pal.
Yeah.
And
done in this town, as they say in Hollywood, right?
Yeah. I wasn't comfortable on that show and felt like the job was mine until about midway through season 3.
Oh man, I tell you what.
I'm telling you, 3 years. I was just like, hey, dude, this guy could fire me any day.
You know something?
And
it very much sounds like, I've been in business now for 39 years, and it's kind of the same feeling. It's like you get to a point, but you can't ever let off. And that takes discipline to keep your nose on the ground when things are going good, because you just don't know. You could, things can change in a real hurry. I mean, when you were in the early days, I'm assuming that you had like gigs like you did jobs in between to keep the money coming in, obviously.
Oh yeah. I mean,
what are some of the jobs you did?
Oh, for God's sakes. I mean, at one point in time, I was always trying to do something that had to do with the industry or that would supplement, like, you're building this foundation of stunt work, right? And some of it was just being comfortable on set, because performing is this whole, I wasn't super comfortable with like being in the spotlight and stuff like that. So I started working live shows. So I did a live show at Universal for a summer where I was performing in front of the little trains that come by. And I would do, there was one day that was real, middle of July, super hot. And it was the most people that ever came through there. I did 92 shows.
Damn.
So they would only last, 30 seconds or whatever.
Yeah. Still.
But I would, was doing a high fall and like running around, like doing a little fight, 90 times. As soon as that one rolled away, you would restart and the next one would roll in. And that was some of the stuff that was prepping me for the real work.
Yeah.
I was in the circus. I did it's not Cirque du Soleil, like there's Cirque du Soleil, and then there's Neil Goldberg's Cirque, which they are more of a corporate Cirque du Soleil type of thing. I was an Imagineer. So I'd come out in silly makeup and tights, and we would like move the equipment and into place for the main performer, and then sit there and like go like that, like as they were performing. I mean, it was absurd, but like I got $300. And it was also, I was up on stage in front of a bunch of people, and I was not comfortable doing that. So you get comfortable real fast.
Well, it's important. It's important to learn how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Otherwise, you're going to get stopped.
You never become comfortable, right?
Right.
But the thing is that I would try to. I'm in a costume, so I'd try to pretend I was somebody that was comfortable.
Yeah. It's funny.
And then eventually you become comfortable.
Yeah, I've had some military guys on that are special op guys, and they talk about that. I said, how in the hell can you guys possibly? Hey, because they tell me we are actually more comfortable now when bullets are flying by our head, and obviously they're not fully comfortable. They've just learned how to be very functional in that environment. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, people are like, "Oh, do you get nervous like before a big stunt?" And I'm like, "Yes, yeah, every single time." Like, I don't know if I'm going to come out of it broken.
Yeah,
like if it's something substantial. But I also get this, just like, I'm assuming it's like when you're playing a football game or something, like you're kind of like breathing heavy, and then the ball snaps and you just
calm down.
I don't know. I personally like go into somewhat of a matrix mode where I don't think about anything. I'm just focused on the task at hand. And it allows me to like pinpoint focus. I'm not worried about this or that or this or that. Like I'm only working on the timing and what I have to do. And I'm not worried about getting hurt like I probably was before, but when they call action.
I totally get that. As an athlete, it was like if I wasn't nervous before a game, I was worried about that. I didn't think I was really prepared if I wasn't nervous. I needed those game time jitters. But like you said, the minute snap the ball, especially the minute I took a hit, I'm good now. I'm golden.
The people that think about it too long or can't get that kind of like moment as in they don't last too long.
Right, exactly. No, I really understand. Yeah, it's the same sort of, it's kind of the same but different, in athletics, what you're doing, because it's obviously you're very athletic in what you're doing. It's very interesting.
Absolutely.
I know, Charlie, you had maybe a question you wanted to ask Eric.
Two of my favorite shows are Daredevil and The Punisher. Did you have anything to do with the one takes in the Daredevil, like the hallway scene, or the one in the prison? I think was Daredevil 3, and then Daredevil 2 was the stairs, I think.
Well, the short answer is no. But Daredevil season 1, I wasn't a part of. They did the kind of famous hallway scene there. Daredevil season 2, Bernthal was knocked out in the elevator for that scene. And Daredevil goes through the hallway. So my job when I was doubling the Punisher, I had actually showed up there as the assistant stunt coordinator. I quit NCIS Los Angeles on good terms. He told me, I wanted to get better credits. And I'd been doing that show for 7 years as the lead stunt double. And, I wanted to get into stunt coordinating and start working my way up the chain of command. And somebody offered me a position to be an assistant stunt coordinator. So I got to New York, and that was my job, to cover set, do meetings that the main stunt coordinator wasn't able to do. And we couldn't find a stunt double for John Bernthal that could fight. There are guys that look like him, but they just didn't have the skill level that was high enough to keep up with the Daredevil stunt double. And I just got done with 300 like a few months before that. And so I was primed and ready to go. I looked at his height and his weight and everything. I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, I'm double this guy. And the guy looks at me and he starts laughing. He's like, don't laugh. You might have to. And so, a week later, we still couldn't find anybody. And he's like, why don't you just double him for the previs? Let's do just the previs. Oh, okay. So it's a rehearsal movie that they do. So I doubled him for that. And I loved it. And, I was like, who doesn't want to be the Punisher? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, of course I do. So I did that. And he's like, well, now the fight. Like, you should just, we'll just use you for the one thing. Like, you're not going to have time to do this the whole season. Just double him for this one fight. So the fight was in shadow. So I did the entire fight, like a whole night of filming, and Bernthal did one shot the whole time of him turning around and pointing the gun at Daredevil and firing and going bang. And he goes, that's all he did.
And then he gets the big money, right?
But I was like, this guy Bernthal's gonna hate me. I'm like, he's literally sat in his chair all night. Like, when the hell am I going to get in? Yeah. And I'm talking 10 hours in the middle of the night, all night in New York. We can get off till 5 a.m, whatever. And I was like, this guy's going to hate me. And, he loved me. He was like, you made me look awesome. I didn't have time to rehearse the fight and all this stuff. But so that being said, back to the hallway, when it came to do that, I was also doing this, the assistant stunt coordinating job. So I was prepping the next episode. So while they're doing the hallway fight, I'm getting episode 3 or 4, whatever, ready. And I'm doing location scouts, and I was shooting previs and doing stuff like that for the fights that were going to be coming up after that. So that's what it took. It took a 2-man team to get the job done. There was a lot of fights I was involved with, like I created the diner fight where Bernthal's in there and gets attacked by some assassins, and then got to double him for that and all that stuff. But the hallway scenes I did not do. When it came to Daredevil season 3, I was stunt coordinating Punisher season 2 while Daredevil season 3 was going.
Nice, very nice.
Let's take a quick pause to tell you about something you are definitely going to want.
Do you want a bone-crushing grip? Good, because you're going to get one with the amazing new TRS gripper. It's a progressive grip builder with longer handles and a special ergonomic design that's like a dozen hand grippers in one. Start off easy and work your way up to quickly build your grip strength from wet noodle to pulverizing. The package includes a video from the world-famous strength coach, Dr. Russ Horine, the man who worked with Leo Costa to help bring you big beyond belief in the Bulgarian power burst. Dr. Horine shows you a simple and easy to follow workout plan that takes just minutes a day right from in front of your TV set if you want. So click on the link below and let's get started building you a stronger, firmer, bone-crushing grip.
Any other questions that you might have?
What's been your favorite? Because you were involved in game too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess you'd call it that. Yeah. I mean, I was super stoked to be part of Endgame. I only did the reshoots, but the reshoots were like 3 months. And, I think the prep was the most fun part of that, was like pretending to be Captain America and like all this stuff. Like I knew I wasn't going to be the double, but we would have two groups coming up with, Captain America fights and stuff like that. So I was playing Cap for a while. When it came to filming, they already had their stunt doubles locked in, and I was just basically a goon in the background. So, it's not always like super glorious. Like the most memorable thing from that was I got to fight, Chris Evans as Captain America. So I come in and I think we had 2 or 3 beats where he like blocks me with the shield and hits me, and then I get back up and then he uppercuts me or something like that. And we do that. I film it like 2-3 times, and then they go, "All right, that was great." And the famous they go, "Okay, proxies out." So they call the people, because we're in motion capture suits, so they call us proxies. And so the proxies had to leave, and then they film it again, where the 2 lead actors, it's when they're doing the do-si-do,
Yeah.
and they throw the hammer to each other. They do it again with no one there. And, that's the take they use. Like, I'm not
Wow.
even in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were
it's
left
just
on
like
the floor, right?
we're like that. We are reference. And then they use the stuff where there's like literally no one there.
That's good behind the scenes stories. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But like, I was super happy to be part of that type of a movie. It was very cool.
Yeah.
And just a huge movie that goes down in history. As far as like the best thing that I've ever done is definitely Punisher season 2, just because I was running the show.
Oh,
and
nice.
like I like doubling him, but man, do I like creating stuff and coming up with what he's going to do. And just kind of running everything. And me and Bernthal are really good friends. And I was making sure that he never looked bad.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let me ask you this: in pro football, the average lifespan of a football player is 4.5 years. Is there a lifespan generally in your industry? And I'm assuming that, because you're kind of talking about, going maybe from actual doing a lot of this stuff to actually creating and coordinating. Is that sort of a natural progression for some? And so the first question is, how long do you guys last in that industry as a stunt person?
It's really just depends on how useful you are. And believe it or not, a lot of it comes down to personality, because these days when you are shooting, you're there for 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes more, but usually a day is like 7 a.m., 7 p.m. When the sun goes down, you wrap. And to want to be around somebody for 12 hours for one day, let alone, 10 to 12 hours for months, they gotta be a nice guy.
Yeah.
You need to be good at what you do, but you also have to be pretty cool and chill to be around.
Yeah.
And not drama. So that actually has a pretty big factor in how long your career lasts.
I'll be darned. I would have never thought that. But it makes sense that you say that.
And when you call it a lifespan, you could be 50, 60 years old, kind of on your way out as a stuntman, but you could keep getting like a job, like, come in and drive the car. Like you're just traffic.
Yeah.
And then the hot shot is the one zipping in and out from all these like random cars. Those are all stunt people.
Yeah.
So they can, but you may not work a whole lot. You may get, 2 jobs a month or something like that. So your income's pretty way down, but hopefully your career was substantial.
Right.
And you've saved up and spent that wisely. So you can easily go into your 60s, 70s. I mean, I know some people that are upper 70s that are still working.
Yeah.
They drive the car, or they're old cowboys. And, if an old man needs to get pushed down, like it's them.
Yeah.
And they're like the guys that doubled, like Indiana Jones. And now he's just like the old man, like walking across the street that jumps out of the way of the car.
Yeah.
So, and then when it comes to stunt coordinating, you're the brains behind everything. So you can do that until you don't understand the industry
Yeah.
where it's been evolving anymore.
Yeah. As long
So
as you're
there
staying
really
relative.
isn't,
Yeah.
yeah,
Relevant.
as long as you can do that job, you can stay relevant until you want to retire.
In that sense, you're like a coach in a way. And then I'm wondering, do you get much pushback from your athletes, so to speak? You know, you're doing this coordinating. It's like, if you're a really good coach, you know how to bring the best out in your athletes. And I would assume that when you're coordinating stunts for people, you got to take that into consideration. It's not one thing fits all, right?
Yeah, definitely not. You know, safety is always a concern. A lot of times I'll have, you know, something in my head, and if the performer feels like they can achieve that bullet point in the fight or the script by doing something different, that they can perform well and it still gives the same feeling or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, we're not curing cancer over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
so I think the people that are good coordinators, they're just, you know, they're kind of the leader, but of, you know, maybe like the SEAL team or whatever, but they are willing to get everybody's input, and then, but that, you know, they make the final decision. So that's why some of it is quite military like.
And I would think that maybe a high percentage of coordinators are guys that have been in the industry and did it from sort of ground level, so they understand it that way. Is that true?
Well, I mean, not always, but the guys that you're willing to, you know, run through a wall for, sometimes literally, those are the guys that have done it.
Yeah. I would
And
think so.
it's a lot easier to take advice or trust somebody who's been there and done that, even though it may not be that specific gag. They have done so many gags that you respect their knowledge, and are willing to do that for them. If there's somebody who is in that position that doesn't have as much experience, and that comes around in a variety of different ways.
Yeah.
Like it's total BS, but it definitely happens. You know, you need to kind of police your own safety and make sure if you are not comfortable with something, or, you know, a lot of times they're willing to like go, oh, well, maybe we can put a pad over there. Like, you know, like that's, you know, too far of a fall. Like I need to get, you know, something beneath me. You're definitely in charge of your own safety. So, but ultimately, you know, the stunt coordinator is the leader. And that should be respected.
Yeah. So where does it all go for you now? I mean, which in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself for the next 10 years? If you don't mind me asking, how old a guy are you?
I'm 41 now.
Oh man, you young guys, sickening.
This kind of goes to this question. Are you going to direct more since you're short film?
Yeah. So I, you know, I'm that stubborn a-hole that during the pandemic got itchy trigger finger, and I'd been working on a project for a little bit, and you know, I want to direct. I want to, you know, I've been around directors that are amazing, and I've learned a lot from them. And I've been around directors that are complete idiots, and I know I would like run circles around them, and I do. You know, like sometimes I have. They, you know, there's a lot of technical terms that like you can just, you know, tell when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's blatant.
And they just are thrust into that position for one reason or another. But, you know, I really wanted to second unit direct for the longest time and just be in charge of the action. But now I'm thinking I want to direct more. And there are guys that are paving that path for people like me, and such as like Chad Stahelski, who directed John Wick. He's, you know, Keanu Reeves stunt double. And that he became a director. And then there's like David Leitch, who directed Deadpool. He was a stunt performer. And then, of course, the most recent and currently famous Sam Hargrave, who was Captain America's stunt double and now has directed Extraction. So the stigma of we're kind of, you know, the idiots that just, you know, the jocks that just fall down. They're starting to realize that we are true filmmakers and are quite smart behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. So I feel like there's a really ripe opportunity to become a director and someone to take me seriously. That being said, I over the pandemic, I got together and produced, directed my own short that is not so short. It's like 22 minutes right now. And the idea is for that to go into film festivals. So I'm trying to get it done by May, like completely finished. Like we shot it, when everybody was kind of down and out last year. And, the goal is to submit it to Sundance in May and then go through the whole circuit, everything that it'll take me.
Interesting. Eric, you've had a fascinating journey from my perspective, and I applaud you, man. I mean, you've earned it, it sounds like, and you deserve it. And you give me a whole insight on something that I knew nothing about. I did one gig. I used to train Kevin Costner back in those days for the Bodyguard, and he gave me an opportunity to do a bit part, to do lines. Fuck that. I mean, I went in there, it was only like 20 words, and I thought, how hard can this shit be, right? And after that,
20?
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Well, maybe not even that. It was just like a few words, I guess. Maybe 22.
I won't say over 5.
Well, maybe
I've been doing this like 20 years.
I was 200 miles away from. I lived at that time 200 miles away from where I was going, and I was with my wife. I was, repetition being the most. Go bam, bam, bam. I get in there, I choked like a mother, and I told Kevin, I go, man, I really appreciate the opportunity, but it's like anything else. It's not always what meets the eye. There's so much more behind that. And you are a true example of somebody who's done it, I think, the honest and the right way, man. So I applaud you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. I don't try to overstate anything I've done. I always try to be honest about my skill level and the things that I've done. It's all true.
Well, and it's obvious. Look, it comes through. You're authentic. I sense that, and people can too. It's just like trainers. Clients know when you're just mailing it in, as opposed to being authentic, about being all in. And I can pick up on that right away. And you're one of those, you're the legit guy. So anyway, listen, I really do appreciate you coming on. And if there's ever a chance that we do this again, I'd love to have you back on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I mean, I feel bad. All we do is talk about me. I feel like we need to do another one where I get to hear your story.
Absolutely. Whenever you want to come back. I mean, I'm really glad this happened. So best of luck to you. And let us know when you got something else going on.
Definitely. Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.